Last week I blasted myself in the face with soda for views, and this week we're actually going to be productive. The Mustang interior that we converted from bum ugly brown to super sleek black is still missing a bit, and I'm not just meaning a much needed vacuum, it needs a little color. So to remedy this horrendous issue, we're slapping on some LED strips for the interior. Now when choosing LEDs I had a few options. I could replace all the bulbs in the car with different colored LEDs, but I decided that an LED strip would be much cooler, so I got this. Now they did say that this was red, but I think you can tell as well as I could that it's really an orange, but either way I decided to move forward with it, knowing that at worst I could yoink it out and replace it with something else. The first thing that I needed to do was pull out the center console. From there I had to find two wires, one that would be on when the key was in the on position, and a second that would be my ground wire. The LED strip did come with a USB plug that I could have used, but I didn't want to take up a USB slot solely for the lighting that you would only really see at night, plus this option is much sleeker. So I moved forward by stripping back the wires for the LED strip and then soldering them onto the two wires that I'd found earlier. Next up was mounting the strip. This part was a mix of great and awful. The LED strip came with a plastic lip lining around the whole strip for you to push into the cracks of the dash. This worked great on areas like around the steering wheel, but not every part of the dashboard was connected by cracks. On top of this, some of the cracks in the dash had too large of a gap, so the LED strip would immediately fall out. But as I mentioned, this was something that I could replace later if needed, so even though it wasn't going the way I had imagined it in my head, I wanted to finish anyway. After the lights were in, it was time for me to replace the driver's seat. I'd been using an extra seat as my desk chair for about half a year, and it was time to finally say goodbye. You may be wondering why I'm putting a seat in when there was already another racing seat in the car, but you see, not all racing seats are the same. Even one that looks very similar can be quite different. The seat that I'm putting in has a lot more hip room, and has more cushions for your legs in comparison to the other seat. The best way that I can think to describe it is that the seat that was in the car is a track racing seat, and the one that I'm replacing it with is a street racing seat. That analogy really isn't that descriptive, but I'm hoping that we're making some race car brainweave connections right now, because I can't think of a better analogy. One super incredibly smooth transition that is worth a like and subscribe, and we're on to something I don't think I've done in about 28 years, and that's painting something with a rattle can. My brother was sitting around and then slapped me in the face and was like, "Yo fam, I want my wing to be black." And in complete shock and confusion, I said, "Okay." Admittedly, he did have a great point. The wing was already in super rough condition, badly needing a refresh. On top of that, the Mustang really doesn't have many black accents for the factory, which it really needs. We fixed some of this by adding a lip and darker lights, but it still needed more. To get the wing the way we wanted, I used the same tried and true strategy. Start by sanding down the wing with 220 grit, move up to 600 grit, slap on a few layers of primer, slap on a few layers of base, slap on a few layers of metallic, slap on 3 to 5 layers of clear, let the dough rise for 2 hours, coat it with butter, then slice and serve. I finished eating the bread we made a while back while painting the wing, and now it is time for the brakes. As I mentioned in the last video, the Mustang decided that it was time to replace the brake line, so that's what we're doing. As my favorite Mighty Car Mod saying goes, if you're going to replace it, you might as well upgrade, and that's what we're doing, going from the factory rubber lines to steel braided. If you've never upgraded your brake lines before, I would definitely like to take the time to tell you how awesome they are. If you're someone who enjoys taking the car out on back roads for a drive, which I know that you definitely are because you're watching this video, then you'd absolutely love steel braided brake lines. The lines stiffen up the feel of the brakes, making it so that you don't need to push your foot down as far as possible for the brakes to grab. You're probably thinking, okay, cool, but what's so special about that? Well, once you start driving your car more and more, especially driving it hard, you start to notice every little detail that could use an upgrade. You'll notice everything except for the brake feel. That's what makes steel braided brake lines so cool. They are the upgrade that you never knew that you wanted. The most similar mod that relates to this is you're getting an aftermarket steering wheel. Your car could already turn left and right, and changing the steering wheel doesn't actually do anything performance wise, but the feel you get is so much nicer. Steel braided brake lines are the exact same way, and I am now 2 for 2 on analogies today. Also, brake lines are very simple to install. On most cars, there are 2 bolts on the line and 1 mounting bolt. Simply pull out the old line and screw the new one back in. Simple as that. Once you're done, you just have to move on to the other 3, repeating the steps in the same exact way. Once the lines are in, the last thing that you need to do is bleed them. I recently got a pressure bleeder since even solo bleeding the brakes the old-fashioned way can be pretty annoying. What a pressure bleeder does is push new fluid through the system, forcing out any air bubbles along the way. All you need to do is crack the bleeder valve on the caliper and then watch until you're getting a smooth stream of clean brake fluid with no bubbles. Then close the valve and move on to the other 3 brakes. Just remember to bleed the brakes in the order of furthest brake away from the brake master cylinder to the closest. And with all that done, the Mustang is finished. Lights, seats, brakes, and a wing. A solid weekend of working, making sure that one of the project cars we worked on over a year ago is still going strong. Now I'm hungry again and I want some more bread, so like and subscribe if you want some bread too.